Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Race Rats Podcast. I'm gonna start it off. Nothing's going on with Race Rats Podcast. Nothing is changing. Unfortunately, me and G's schedules did not align. We've been trying to film this episode for a few weeks now. It's now a few days before the Vegas Grand Prix, and we just do not have time. We have very conflicting schedules at the moment, and she thought it was best I just film this one by myself again. Unfortunately for me. Um, that is fine. We make it work. Hopefully this does not become a common occurrence for us. But I am here today to talk about the Brazil Grand Prix. And what a weekend it was. Full of lots of changes and shocks. So we're just going to jump straight into it. Starting with it being a sprint weekend, meaning we only had free practice one and the sprint qualifying on the Friday. We did have a substitute driver in because Kevin Magnussen did unfortunately fall ill right before it, meaning he was out. It was supposed to just be Friday, ended up being a little bit more serious and ended up being out for the entire weekend, meaning the lovely Ollie Behrman stepped in to drive for Haas for the weekend, preparing himself for next year, I guess. We did have another sick driver, Fernando Alonso. He did not show up to media day because he unfortunately also got sick between the last Grand Prix. He did make it by Friday, so very glad to see Alonso still on the grid. But apparently they were all getting sick right before Brazil. So jumping straight into free practice one. Pretty standard. Threatening weather for Brazil. Nothing really standing out other than Verstappen having a bit of trouble and complaining about the car setup tires, that kind of thing. And did finish the session down in P15. The top three for FP1 were Ollie Behrman, George Russell, and Lando Norris. Then straight into sprint qualifying because a sprint weekend means no rest at all. We did have another interesting set of circumstances. We did see the first five out being Zhou Guanyu, Lance Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda, Esteban Ocon, and Fernando Alonso. With both of the Aston Martins out, it just was not their weekend, unfortunately. They just, yeah, there's not much to say. They were slipping and sliding. First five out. That's it. Next five out were Valtteri Bottas, Franco Colapinto, Sergio Perez, Nico Hulkenberg, and Lewis Hamilton. So Perez did make it out of Q1 this week. Did not make it out SQ1. Did not make it out of SQ2. But we did also have the shocking exit of Lewis Hamilton and Franco Colapinto for having lap times deleted. In saying that, we did get one Haas up in the top 10 of Ollie Behrman, who did unfortunately not get to finish his session because he did have a bit of a crash in SQ3, seeing him filling out the 10th spot. Because he just couldn't, unfortunately, get a better lap time after crashing out. Like, that was it. It was out. Ninth, Alex Albon. Eighth, Liam Lawson. Seventh, Pierre Gasly. Just want to say, Pierre Gasly, doing some phenomenal work at the moment in that car. It has also just come out in the last few days, again, filming this week of Vegas. He is the first driver to not cause a single cent of damage this season. I think ever, actually, at the moment. Yeah. Anyway, I hope that stays for him. George Russell in 6th. You'll never guess who is in 5th. Carlos Sainz. Please. Number 5. We get it. Max Verstappen in 4th. Charles Leclerc in 3rd. And a front row start for the 2 McLarens. Lando Norris in 2nd and a sprint qualifying pole position for Oscar Piastri. So, congratulations. Amazing work. Let's see what they can pull home in the sprint race. All right, onto the sprint race. Honestly, pretty exciting. The weather was, again, always threatening, as it does in Brazil, which meant they were not only racing on laps, but racing the clock before the heavy rain started. Norris and Piastri were fighting each other quite fairly, luckily enough, at the front of the pack, where Verstappen quickly made up places. Verstappen made his way to the top 3. Further back, there was a bit of a war going on between Sergio Perez and Liam Lawson, not only for that Red Bull seat for next year, but apparently on track. That has possibly become one of the funniest things I've ever seen, because there is onboard. There is onboard footage from Liam Lawson's car of him flipping off Perez. That man is actually collecting enemies in Spanish drivers, like gemstones in the gauntlet. So, we'll see how the rest of the season goes for him. There's 3 races left, and that could possibly also be it for him. In saying that the McLarens are fighting fair, Norris did seem to have a bit more pace, but Oscar kind of was defending quite well. And there was a few radio messages saying, "I thought we spoke about this, like, what are we doing here?" Which seems to be the papaya rules coming into play, but also thinking about the benefit of the team for not only the Constructors' Championship, but obviously with Norris still in the fight for the Drivers' Championship, they've got to kind of put that into play of they need to maximize his points. If they can keep Piastri within good points for the Constructors, they also need to be prioritizing Lando for the Drivers' Championship. Just a little bit. The team did say over the radio they were happy to hold positions until the end, see how it went. And when it did come down to it, Piastri did concede that place because in the end, Norris did have more pace, and it was for the benefit of the team. Verstappen had made his way up to 3rd, as I said. There was unfortunately a virtual safety car to clear the track of the house of Nico Hulkenberg. And that did see Verstappen drop down in the standings because he did not adhere to the VSC, which meant he got a penalty. The overall points haul for the sprint race definitely did help Norris in the Drivers' Championship standings, closing the gap to I think 44 points if I'm correct. And obviously still doing fantastic for the team for Constructors. The final results, though, obviously the top 8 when it comes to the sprint race, because only the top 8 get points. Only just cinching that 8th place, Sergio Perez. 7th, Pierre Gasly. 6th, George Russell. Again, you'll never guess who finished P5. I don't even have to say it anymore. 4th, due to the VSC penalty, Max Verstappen, moving Charles Leclerc up into third, Oscar Piastri in second, and for his first sprint race win ever. Many firsts for Norris this year. Lando Norris. There's nothing more to say about it. I'm proud. I'm proud of the Papaya Boys. Then is obviously supposed to come qualifying after this. Due to the terrible weather conditions at the track, the qualifying actually got delayed originally, and then it got to a point where it was not lighting up, it was too dangerous, and qualifying got scrapped altogether for the day and was moved to 7:30 the next morning. So race day was now also qualifying day and then race day. The race also was moved forward due to expected heavy storms during the original race time. So it was very, very condensed, and a bit touch and go as to if qualifying was actually going to go ahead. It did. A lot of jokes were made about how if it didn't go ahead, how they were going to kind of figure out which way they wanted to set the grid. Some people said it would be FP1 standings. There was a few jokes about how it should be. I think my favorite one I saw was like it should be going by their hairline. Yeah, we want to talk about that one. In the end, it kind of ended up being gladiator rules of who can survive the longest, because the weather still was not wonderful for qualifying, and it did have some serious consequences for that. So Q1 did have, honestly, from the get go, some scary situations. There was yellow flags brought out for Liam Lawson sliding off track. He was able to get back on, it was fine. But moments later, Zhou also went off in the same area, causing, I think, another set of yellow flags. Yuki Tsunoda had slotted himself into that first position, which was wonderful. Yuki does deserve it. He is a phenomenal driver. And then red flags were brought out because Franco Colapinto slid off and went very hard into the barriers. So the session had to be red flagged to remove Colapinto's car from the barriers. And I'd just like to remind everyone now that while I talk about the qualifying and what happened, there is mere hours before the race is due to start. Anything that happens in this qualifying session, the teams have so much work to do to get the cars running very quickly for the race. Franco was fine. He did report that he was fine. There's about 8 minutes left after the session resumed. Because there were so many cars trying to get those laps in that they weren't able to get in with the tricky conditions, it was a little bit touch and go because Lando Norris had found himself in that bottom 5. There was a very big chance Lando Norris was not going to make it through to Q2. Hamilton also was at risk, only pulling a good enough lap time to just make him safe in P14. And Lando was struggling down in P15 due to having track limits deleted from, again, they're all kind of sliding around. Lando was able to pull a good enough lap. It was scary as a Lando fan. He was able to pull a good enough lap just to squeeze up into P14 and actually push Hamilton out. So the first 5 out were Hamilton, Behrman, Colapinto, Hülkenberg, and Zhou. The first 5 out from last forward were Zhou, Hülkenberg, Franco Colapinto, Ollie Behrman, who unfortunately couldn't pull a lap time together well enough either, and Lewis Hamilton. Q2 had rain easing a little bit, still not helping with the track conditions. There was really no grip on the track no matter what tyres they tried. Russell had a bit of a spin. Shortly after, some red flags were brought out, unfortunately for my sanity, due to colour signs going off the track into barrier. So that is another damaged car. There's about 5 minutes left on the clock when this got red flagged, which meant to get into Q1 there was a very, very short amount of time when that red flag got lifted and they were allowed it back out of the pits to not only have their warm-up lap in the tricky conditions but also have enough time to do another lap to pull themselves out of Q2. Just after they'd gotten back out, there was another red flag for Lance Stroll. Seeing the next 5 out from bottom to top being Pierre Gasly, Carlos Sainz due to the crash, Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen, and Valtteri Bottas. I will note that Verstappen also went into this weekend with a 5-place grid penalty, which meant that P12 position did see him starting P17 for race day. Shortly after Q3 started, there was red flags once again due to Fernando Alonso going into barriers. When I say that the weather was horrible, I mean it. When I say it was gladiator rules, last man standing qualifying, setting the grid, I mean it. Obviously, that meant that with another red flag, everyone once again lined up in the pit to try and get out as fast as possible because there's very little time. With about 3 minutes left until the end of the session, there was another red flag for a massive, massive crash for Alex Albon, which means both of the Williams cars crashed, which meant a lot of work before the race in just a few hours for the Williams team. Obviously, the rest of the drivers were told to try and set great lap times, but be careful because they were pretty much walking a very fine line between speeding as much as they could, but also not damaging the car for the race that was in a few hours. Which meant the top 10 starting from 10th to 1st was Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri, Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc, Liam Lawson, Esteban Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, George Russell, and Lando Norris on pole for the race. Obviously, I am ecstatic about another Lando pole, but let me tell you, nothing made me happier than seeing Yuki up there on that top 3. Yuki, the man that you are, also the height that you are, because if you saw the photos of the 3 of them, it was interesting. But I have never seen Yuki happier. The smiles on his face, the cheering for him, he deserves it. I don't know why Red Bull keep disregarding him, because Yuki is a phenomenal driver. I've got nothing else to say. Yuki is a phenomenal driver. Please pay more attention to him. He's underrated as hell. Thank you. Obviously, then we did have the race. Before the race even started, there was a bit of drama because, as spoken about before, both the Williams had extensive damage, and I do mean extensive. The mechanics tried their best. Obviously, that's what they do. They work their asses off. Unfortunately, the damage to Alex Albon's car was way too far gone, and that did mean Alex Albon did not get to race. That was a car down. There was drama with the race before the race even started beyond that, because during the formation lap, there was already somebody out. Lance Stroll did slide and go. He spun off. Yeah, he spun off during the formation lap, causing it to abort the start. Unfortunately, there was a bit of confusion then because obviously the drivers didn't know what was going on. It did kind of start a change reaction of Lando doing another formation lap, with others driving behind, like following behind. Apparently, they weren't supposed to. They weren't aware. It was a whole mess. Um, they were told that they were going to be investigated for that as well, for not following start procedure. Um, Russell had a phenomenal getaway. So did Lando, but Russell did get a better one. And Verstappen very, very quickly made his way up the grid. Um, the rain was quite scary to see. Um, I don't think I've ever been angrier during a race. Not even because of the drivers. The fact that the race went ahead. A lot of people did not think the race should go ahead due to the weather. I am definitely one of those people. When you look at their onboards, there is no visibility whatsoever. And that's one thing. But to then hear the likes of Ollie Behrman over his radio saying, like, come on, I didn't come here to die. Oscar Piastri, who holds himself so well, and is such a calm guy that he literally, there is jokes about him being the next Kimi Räikkönen, Iceman. To hear how many times he hit that radio to say that he was uncomfortable and scared from Oscar Piastri is a massive thing. You also had Franco Colapinto begging for wet tires, begging. It was so unsafe, which then sucks when you find out that he was first proper red flag of the session on about lap 32 when he went off really harshly into a barrier and stopped the race, while they got him out. He was begging for different tires because of it. Maybe we should have listened. Because of the red flag, though, there was an unfortunate luck for George Russell and Lando Norris, who had just pitted right before this red flag, which meant they came back out, it got red flagged. The three drivers ahead of them basically got a free pit stop out of this, which then caused a bit of controversy because Lando did say that they got lucky. He wasn't saying that the race results were lucky. He was just saying, yeah, us and our teams made a bad call, him and Russell, and I guess they got lucky with the safety car. It was a simple, nothing bad. He wasn't talking about anyone. He didn't name anyone. People got really mad and said that he was saying that Max got lucky, with his race result and blah blah blah. That was not it at all. If you'd actually listened to the actual interview and what was said, he just said that they made a bad strategy call for him and George Russell's team as well, and others were smart and stayed out. Simple. There was another safety car brought out, due to another crash, unfortunately from Carlos Sainz. Which meant Verstappen actually did quite well and surged to the front. All I really have to say is the race definitely shouldn't have gone ahead. There was a lot of retirements. Poor Alonso was on the radio, in absolute pain, but he refused to give up because the team had put so much work into getting his and Lance's cars back on the grid, ready for the race. And unfortunately, with Lance spinning out and retiring before the race even started, he felt it was only fair to his team, who had put so much work into those cars, to finish the race for them, which meant there was footage of him trying to get out of the car after, and it breaks your heart to see, because why are we letting this happen to the drivers? Why are we letting them put their health on the line for this? Either way, top 10 finishing. Lewis Hamilton, Liam Lawson, Oscar Piastri, Oscar Piastri, Yuki Tsunoda, Lando Norris, unfortunately down in 6th, Charles Leclerc in 5th, George Russell in 4th, and the top 3 drivers of the race, which, as much as it hurt to see Lando down in 6th and obviously Carlos DNF, there was a little bit of joy I got out of this. 3rd place, Pierre Gasly. 2nd place, Esteban Ocon. And 1st place, Max Verstappen. Max's first win since back in June or July, so congrats to him. But the Alpines, after such a terrible start to the season, both getting a podium for the first time in years. It's insane. I'm so happy for them. They were so happy. For 2 boys that have such a track record of being enemies, they were ecstatic for each other. And it was nice to see the Alpine team finally get some recognition. There's not much more I'm going to say, other than, once again, Sergio Perez finding himself outside the top 10, not helping Red Bull in the constructors. McLaren still hold 1st place for constructors, with Ferrari behind in 2nd and Red Bull in 3rd. A few more drivers got knocked out of contention for the Drivers' Championship now. And with 3 races left to go, there is only 2 drivers left in contention for that Drivers' Championship. That is Max Verstappen and that is Lando Norris. Now, depending how the Vegas race goes, Max could take the championship in Vegas, or it could continue to fight if Lando does well enough. So I've got nothing left to say about Brazil other than being an absolutely gorgeous country. That race was unsafe for so many reasons, and there is now some big things being said about it. And I guess we wait and see how the championship fight goes this weekend. I feel like this episode's been kind of chaotic. I'm very tired. And it's weird doing it by myself when I'm tired. I don't have somebody to bounce off. But I'm going to leave it there. This has gone on long enough. Thank you for watching another episode. Hopefully Vegas will be more exciting with the glitz and glam. And have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye, Australia.